going to be healthy. In some cases, they'll...
Thousands of years old, and I'm assuming that's the universe, the stars, and everything else. If you look at our galaxy, it's supposed to be like billions of miles apart, the stars. And if light travels in light years, and they say the light from these stars are millions and millions of light years away, then it seems like it would have to be more than thousands of years old. So if you can explain that.
Okay, I'll explain that, sure. The question he's asked is one of what's called cosmology. That is the origin of the universe, not living things, but the origin of the stars and planets and systems we see. And he's asked a very good question. And as a creationist, I would have had a lot of problem with that question until about 2 years ago when someone did the real research. And we now, as creationists, have answers to that, okay? But let me try to sketch this, and I'll try to keep it simple, but I've got to get a little technical so you understand it, okay? When Albert Einstein developed his theory of relativity, he said certain things about the universe we see, and it appears that most of what Einstein said appears to be demonstrable. That means it appears to be real science. We can examine it in the present, and it appears to be true. For example, one of the things Einstein said is gravity affects time. The stronger the gravity, the slower the clock runs. And Stephen Hawking wrote about that in his book called, somebody help me with the title of the book. Anyone know it? A Brief History of Time, right. Stephen Hawking wrote about that and talked about the fact that as a person approached a black hole, the clock would run slower and slower compared to the rest of the people around them. So when they when they do the Big Bang and they run the Einsteinian equations, they make two assumptions. One of the assumptions is the universe is unbounded, that is, it has no limit. And the second assumption is the universe is essentially without a center. It is completely dispersed. It is essentially evenly dispersed. There's some problems with that because it's not evenly dispersed. It's really lumpy. When you just look out at the stars at night, you realize it's really lumpy. But in fact, those assumptions are made, and then you run the Einsteinian equations, and you get the Big Bang cosmology. Well, if we change those assumptions and say, no, the universe is in fact bounded, and the Earth and the Milky Way are somewhere near the center, not at the center, but somewhere near the center, then a couple things happen. One of the things that happens is the clock here runs slow compared to the rest of the universe. If we were at the center, which I'm not advocating, but if we were at the center, the clock would run slowest here. So a 24-hour day here would run when thousands, millions, and billions of years are taking place in terms of the relative time in those places out there beyond us. So light from distant objects can get to us, in fact, in what for us is 24 hours, but from out there is millions of years. That's one. The second one is, the other question is the idea of the redshift, and the redshift and the background radiation are also explained by that model. I'm not going to spend any more time on it, but point you to the book Starlight and Time. Okay? Starlight and Time gives Humphrey's model, and it deals with those concepts, and the concept is very simple. When I read that book the first time, I said, finally, a creationist answer to the idea of light from distant objects, redshift, and background radiation. And we do have an answer with assumptions that make sense. I mean, does the universe look like it has no limit? Does it look like, in fact, it has no center? And we know one thing about it. It has very little stuff in the north, because God told us the north is empty from the earth. That direction appears to be less matter.